Hello everyone, welcome to Dnyanadeep. In this UPSC simplified series, we are going to discuss one more question from UPSC previous year. Now, this is one geography question. We'll see what is the question and we'll discuss how ideally an answer should be written for this. Question reads, whereas the British planters had developed tea gardens all along the Shivaliks and Lesser Himalayas from Assam to Himachal Pradesh, in effect, they did not succeed beyond Darjeeling area. Right now, this is a question from economic geography, and in particularly, this is economic geography of India, and we have to discuss regarding the development of tea gardens in India. Now, let us find the locus of this particular question. The locus of this question is regarding the development of tea gardens. So we will have to have an idea of how this tea cultivation is done. What are the various factors which determine the location of tea garden and tea industry, right? Now there is one topic in your syllabus regarding the location of industries, and you can directly relate this particular question to that particular topic. Now that will be our locus, that is development of tea gardens. And in focus, we have to give reasons why these tea gardens are only successful in specific locations of India. Fine. So, general locus is the development of tea garden, and focus is what? We have to provide reasons for specific locations in India. So, we'll see what all we have to understand here. Now, when it comes to introduction, there can be multiple ways in which introduction can be given. In this particular case, there are two ways I can introduce. One way is the fact regarding tea garden in India. Another way I can introduce is giving the conditions which are required for the development of tea garden. These are two standard ways. Okay? So even if you start and say, see, these are the conditions under which, or these are the factors which affect the location of tea garden. So that can be your introduction, giving that fact on location. Another introduction can be how there can be distribution of tea gardens in India. So these are the facts. These are two facts which you can use in introduction. Now, when it comes to my choice or the decision I am going to make, what I am going to do, I will provide, see, tea cultivation in India is done in these areas, right? And is not going to be beyond eastern parts of Himalayas. Fine. So here we are going to argue ki how tea garden is only done in Assam, West Bengal. These are the largest producer of teas, and these states are located in eastern parts of Himalaya. So that is my introduction. Very simple, but an introduction which is again reflecting the reality of the question or the reality which has been presented in the question. Now, why I'm not going for the locational factors behind the development of tea gardens? Now, the simple purpose is I want to use that particular content in my body. Fine. So, that is my convenient choice. You can go for location wala part also, but generally what I prefer, I do not directly divulge a lot of detail in introduction. Okay, I keep introduction as merely a start which tells me what issue we are discussing in the question itself. Okay, so that is about the introduction. I'll just simply say what is the present condition of cultivation of tea in India. Now, in body part, I have now divided body in two parts. One part is conditions under which tea cultivation is to be done. And when it comes to the condition under which tea cultivation is to be done, here I'll mention the geographical conditions which are required for tea cultivation or tea gardens or tea plant. Now, this is a very simple fact which has been given in your NCERT. Now, what NCERT says, NCERT में आपको दिख जाएगा कहीं ना कहीं कई सारे प्लांट्स के बारे में, कई सारे क्रॉप्स के बारे में, उनकी ग्रोइंग की कंडीशंस स्पेसिफाई करी है, ठीक है। सो सिमिलरली आई विल गिव कि अंडर व्हाट कंडीशंस टी कैन बी ग्रोन, because that is somewhere lies your answer for part 2. Now when I am saying what conditions which are required for tea cultivation, there is one condition, that is it requires humid weather, right? It requires a soil which can be drained easily or which will drain water easily, and it does not tolerate strong sunlight. Fine. So this is my condition for the growth of tea. Once I have put this particular aspect, now I can very simply answer ki why tea cultivation could not succeed beyond Darjeeling, or why it is limited only to Assam or West Bengal. Now I'll move to part 2 of my answer. Now I will give geographical reasons why this has not been succeeded or not been successful. And in this particular part you have to understand one aspect of slope. Fine. Maybe many of you know this particular part, many of you do not know this particular part. When it comes to slope, a hill or a mountain can, at least in this particular context, in India we can either have east-west slope in Himalayas, or we have north-south slope. When it comes to the slope of mountain in western parts of Himalaya, it's a east-west facing slope. Now if you look at the alignment of Himalaya is something like this, okay? So if you look at here, the slope of mountains or slope of hills is east-west, and if you look at in the eastern part, it is north-south. When it comes to east-west slope, what happens during the earlier part or before noon, eastern part will receive a lot of strong sunlight. During post noon part, western slope will receive a lot of strong sunlight, direct sunlight is there. When it comes to north south slope, none of the slope receives direct sunlight any time of the day, and that is a fundamental reason why we have tea cultivation which is successful in the eastern part, because in eastern part what we have, north south slope. Western part, it is east-west slope. East-west slope will receive strong sunlight, not the north-south slope. Fine. So I have mentioned one geographical reason, that is slope, which is a major reason. Another important point I have to mention, that will be humidity levels. Definitely humidity levels are higher in eastern parts, not in the western part. Then you'll move on to the soils which are present in eastern and western part. So in eastern part, we have development of duar. These are fertile soils, but there is slight slope. So this particular soil will drain very easily. So that is also one important aspect which will add on to the development of tea gardens. Now, these are geographical factors which are going to define the development of tea gardens in eastern parts of India, not in the western parts of India. In part 2, I had made 2 sections. Other reasons are also to be given here. Let's give other reasons. Okay. Now, when it comes to the development of tea gardens, locational factors, if you look into it, so locational factor mein there is a geographical factor, there is a factor of finance, there is a factor of land availability, and there is a factor of labor. Fine. So these are the locational factors for tea gardens or tea industry. Now geographical factor we already have addressed. Let's talk about finance. So this development of tea cultivation or tea gardens, it occurred in British era, and during British era Kolkata was a major finance center, and as a result we have easy availability of finance, or we had easy availability of finance in eastern part, which was not so successful in western part. So that is my one part. Land availability is not such an issue. Fine. So there was a lot of land available in eastern and western part also. Then there comes a point of labor, right? It's a labor intensive industry. Now when it comes to the eastern parts of India, those are very poor parts, not a lot of agriculture is successful in eastern part of India, and from the states like Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, a lot of migration has happened in the northeastern parts, or the states such as Assam or the Darjeeling area. And this particular migration has resulted into availability of cheap labor in these particular areas, and that is also one of the answer why development of tea gardens is successful in Darjeeling or in eastern parts of India and not in western part of India. So that is how I'm going to answer all these issues when it comes to cultivation of tea. Now my answer should also compulsorily have map. On map I will show in which region we produce tea in India. Now for the matter of fact, majority of the tea is produced in eastern part of India, but there are some pockets, a few pockets in Himalayas, somewhere in Himalayas and somewhere in Western Ghats we cultivate tea. So you have to tell me in the comment box which are these pockets or which are these places where we cultivate tea. Now in conclusion, you can have a generic conclusion, right? That can be one way. Now what is a better way? You can provide significance of tea gardens in the eastern parts of Himalaya, because it generates employment, it generates economic activity. That can be one way to conclude. Also I can have another way to conclude. I'll say ki, see, tea gardens have a lot of problem and we should actively solve those problems. Just mention whatever problem which are surfacing in current affairs and say we should solve this problem so that the problem of employment is better, or problem of economic growth in eastern parts of India is better. So that is how I'm going to approach this particular question on tea garden. So see you again in next question.